Hello, welcome. In this video, I'm going to walk you through on how to calculate the total corporate tax in Canada. And this example is actually focused on a province in Canada, particularly the British Columbia province. Now, supposing a company in this province made a gross income of 2 million Canadian dollars and a total deduction of $300,000. This deduction could be capital cost allowance, expenses, and so on. Now, how do we actually calculate the total corporate tax for this company? Here is how to go about it. The first thing to do after getting your gross income, which in this case is $2 million, and the deductions to be $300,000. So the taxable income will therefore be the difference between these two values, which will just be this value minus this value, and hit on enter. It gives us this $1.7 million. Okay, now for British Columbia, this is actually the tax rate at the moment. Now chances are excellent that this rate are actually subject to change. So what I will advise you to do is always work with the current rate. Now for the federal tax for businesses that have a gross income of less than or equal to 500,000, the federal tax this kind of business pay is 9% of their gross income. While the general corporate tax, that is if the income goes above $500,000, now the tax will be 15%. Now for the provincial tax, that is particularly for the British Columbia, the provincial tax is for businesses that earn less than or equal to $500, they pay as low as 2%. While the general corporate tax, that is when you earn above this value, you pay as a bit high as 12%. But let's see the technicality around this calculation. Now the federal tax for small business, starting with this value, this 500,000, supposing this business actually earns this value or less, so what will be the federal tax? Now look at it here. So it is now classified under the small business, so we're going to calculate a tax of 9%. So how do we calculate the tax of 9%? This will be equals to this value, then multiply it by this 9%. So hit on enter, we'll have this value, which is $45,000. Now, but in this case, this business is earning above $500,000. So let's see the additional value to this. So to get the additional value, what we're gonna do is to just say the difference between this value minus the benchmark of 500,000. Then we'll hit on enter, we'll have 1.2 million. So we're gonna calculate now this general corporate tax of 15% will be calculated on this XX above the 500,000. So what it simply means is we can say this value, then multiply it by this 15%, then we'll hit on enter, we'll have $180,000. Now this is one way you can go about it. Another way you can go about it is supposing this value, supposing this business is earning less than or just equal to 500,000. We can also go about it this way using the if function. Let me just keep it here. So we can say if I'm calculating for this, so we want to say if this value is, that is the taxable income, if it is greater than this benchmark, which is 500,000, we should do something. What do we expect it to do? We should say get the difference for us, which is this minus this difference, this particular one, then this difference, now multiply it by this rate. Then if this is true, do this. But if this is false, that is if this value, if this difference is not more than 500,000, then certainly here will become 0. So give us 0 as return in terms of the federal tax we're gonna pay. So if I close this bracket now, then I hit enter, you observe we'll still get the 180,000. So what this simply means is you can do this particular calculation here, so that whenever this difference is not whenever this difference is 0, here becomes automatically 0. But if that is too technical, you can just follow this step as I am calculating. So at the end of the day, the total federal tax will be this particular value, this one, then plus, so we're going to hit this value, then come to, okay, let's continue. Okay, plus this particular value, or you can just use the sum function. So when you hit enter, we get the total federal tax to be $225,000. So now let's come to the province. Now for the province, we're going to be using this. So suppose this a business is earning less than or equal to 500,000, so the tax we're going to be paying will be this value, multiply it by this 2%. So hit on enter, we get $10,000. Now but in this case is a bit high. It's even not even a bit high. This is 1.7, so the difference also will be this particular value, this one, minus this. So to get the difference, then hit enter, we'll get 1.2 as well. But the tax on this now will be this value, multiply it by the 12% we're going to be paying on the provincial level. So hit on enter, we have 144. And you can as well do the same calculation I did previously when I say you can use the if function. So you can just see the if function. If this particular value is greater than this particular value, then what should happen? Get a difference between them first of all, which is this particular one minus this one, then the value of this difference, multiply it by this 12%. Then but if this is not the case, meaning if it is not greater, then return 0 here, close the bracket, then you hit enter, you observe you get the same thing. So at the end of the day as well, the total provincial tax will be the summation, I'm using the sum function in this case, the summation of this and this, close the bracket, then you hit and enter, you have $154,000. So the total corporate tax at the end of the day will be your your total federal tax, which is this, then plus your total provincial tax, which is this, then you hit enter, you have $379,000. Now you can actually get these simple details just for presentation. So the gross income, we can just use the reference, so we can just say equals to just go up, this is the gross income, I'll hit enter. Then the deduction equals to, this is the deduction, I'll hit enter. Then the taxable income equals to this particular one, hit enter. The federal tax, which is based on small business, equals to, this is federal tax, and we're having 45,000, enter. Then the federal tax for the general, this is equal to, in this case, 180, enter. Then the total federal tax is the summation of this, which we got here, enter. Then the provision tax for the small business, this is it, 10,000, enter. Then the provision tax for the general, which is this, enter. Then the total provision tax will be this one, enter. And the total corporate tax will be this, enter. So with this, you can actually just present this, which is more presentable, this particular record, and you can print this out. Now should you change any of these particular values here, this value will automatically adjust. For instance, let's say the total let's say the gross income for this business is, in this case, let's say is 800,000. So if it is 800,000, for instance, as soon as we do 800,000, everything will automatically adjust, and you will see the total tax you're going to be paying is $55,000. Now if the value as well changes, if the gross income or the deduction changes, you can just follow suit. Similarly, if you're calculating for another province, what you just do is change the percentage here, that is the interest rate here. Now I have this sheet for the tax rate with small business rate calculation, which is in this sheet for other provinces in Canada. Now, like I said, this can be subject to change, so I'll always advise you check the current rates in your province. So for like the one we just calculated just now, so for the British Columbia, the provision tax is 12% and the federal tax is 15%. And for the combine of this, just the combination of this and this gives 27. Now for small business rate in British Columbia is 2%, and then for when it is above the threshold, they pay 9%, and the combination of these two two value is this. So should you want to change, let's say you are actually calculating for Ontario. Now for small business rate for Ontario is a bit higher than British Columbia, while British Columbia pays 2%, at the moment Ontario pays a little higher, which is 3.2%. so depending on the province you are calculating for, you can use any of this rate, slot them in accordingly, and everything calculates for you. I trust by this you understand the concept on how to calculate tax in Canada. Thank you very much. This is all for this video, and bye for now.